In today's video on this series of How to Explain Autism, we're looking at 7 of the best autism analogies to explain the autistic experience. Let's see how many you can relate to. Hi everyone, Paul Micallef here from Autism from the Inside. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. So last time we did a deep dive into how to explain autism to others at different levels of complexity, but the problem with trying to be precise is that it's impossible. The more accurate we try and be, the more complex and confusing the answer sounds. So the great thing about analogies is that they're not accurate. They're not trying to be an exact one-to-one representation. They're a kind of shortcut to give someone a sense of what it's like, while explicitly acknowledging that it's not exactly like that. It's just an analogy. So today I'll share 7 of the best autism analogies I've heard used to describe the autistic experience. I'll start with 2 of the most popular ones that you may have heard, and finish with one of my favorites. That one might not be the most effective, but it's fun, I like it, why not? So let's jump straight into it. So, autistic analogy number 1, this one has got to be the most popular that I've heard, having a different operating system. It can be kind of challenging to describe the difference between an autistic brain and a neurotypical brain. Many people say things like, my brain is wired differently, but what does that actually mean? Well, Apple and Microsoft have pretty well-established operating systems. They take essentially the same hardware and wire it, metaphorically, in different ways to create entirely different ecosystems of software and apps. You can't just open one directly in the other. It's often not compatible. You need a dedicated app. There's a translation cost or a file conversion. These systems are set up to do different things and they have different strengths. If you give a computer a command it doesn't understand, it gives you back an error message. And this is very similar to what often happens in social situations. It's almost like my brain speaks a different social language. What does it mean when someone says they're fine, but they're clearly not fine? I had an ex once and we broke up because she was moving interstate and we didn't want to do long distance. And she said, yeah, let's be friends. But then as time went on, she just wasn't all that responsive. In my world, let's be friends means let's maintain a relationship. In her world, let's be friends meant let's not hate each other. In our different operating systems, the same command returned a different answer. The next autism analogy that you may have heard, which is also very popular, is that of feeling like an alien. Some people even say they have wrong planet syndrome, implying that somehow I ended up on the human planet and there must be some mistake because I really don't feel like I belong here. I have a friend of mine who literally asked her mother when she was 6 years old, "Am I an alien?" The question wasn't, I feel a bit different, am I adopted? It was, I feel completely different, am I an entirely different species to the other kids in my class? There are parallels here to being in a completely different culture, where how you do things and ideas about what's polite are just completely foreign to what comes naturally. It's been interesting to me to experience lots of different cultures, some where eye contact is not appropriate. One of the most different cultures I've experienced is some time I spent in an Aboriginal community in a very remote part of Australia. And there, you do not make eye contact. The pace of life was just so completely different as well. If someone asked you a question, it was completely common to just take 30 seconds worth of thinking time before giving any kind of response. This is one of the reasons that so many of us do so well cross-culturally. Being in a foreign culture is almost easier than being in my own culture because I'm used to being the odd one out. I grew up being the odd one out. So they were the 2 most popular analogies. The next 4 address a few different common elements of the autistic experience. And the last one is just fun, so we'll see if you relate to that one or not. Analogy number 3 is of being left-handed in a world where using your left hand is considered socially inappropriate. I really like this one because it emphasizes that difference is subjective and what is considered appropriate is often socially constructed. It also speaks a little bit to how I like to do things when I'm alone and when I'm safe, and how I do things in public when there are all these additional requirements. When I'm alone or I'm allowed to, I use my dominant hand, in other words, do things in the way that comes naturally to me, and that works fairly well in most situations. But as soon as someone's watching, I have to switch to my uncoordinated hand. I have to start doing things in more difficult ways that do not come naturally to me, and it takes a lot more energy and it's much harder to get on. 2 quick examples. I personally like to be very direct. I'm always polite, but sometimes it's still in a very direct way. I I remember one time I had a first date with someone. We went for a lovely 1 hour walk around a lake, had a nice conversation, everything was pleasant enough. So as we were saying goodbye, I let her know, saying something like, "Thanks for today, this has been fun. I'm not really feeling much chemistry, so I don't think we should meet again. But I really enjoyed today, so thanks, bye." I knew immediately that I'd made a mistake. She was visibly shocked, and I learned later that what I should have done is just not follow up and let the silence be my answer, or at least that's what people tell me. If there were more left-handed people in the world, maybe it would be more acceptable to do things in unconventional ways. The next analogy is a favorite that I use when addressing corporate settings. Autism analogy number 4 is being a canary in a coal mine. This one speaks to often being more sensitive than those around us. The coal mine analogy here is that we are the first to keel over and die in a toxic workplace culture, being more sensitive when the sensory environment is not friendly. We are the first to be affected by that. In a communication sense, when instructions are not clear or there's too many conflicting messages, we are the first to get confused and not be able to function. I like this one because it shows how being sensitive and needing more adjustments than other people can actually be a really positive thing. I could point to so many examples in my professional career. When I wasn't clear on something, I would put my hand up and say, "I don't quite get it." And when we clarified, suddenly everyone else realized, "Oh, I didn't get it either. I'm really glad Paul put his hand up and we are all on the same page now." But for employers or others in the room, it sometimes feels like I'm the thorn in the side, slowing everyone down, saying, wait, I need something that everyone else doesn't need. In reality, by addressing the needs of my sensitivity, we're actually improving the conditions for everyone. Another example that comes to mind is a time where I was doing a sensory audit in an autistic special school. We were going through the classrooms and just out of curiosity, I dimmed the lights like 10%. And suddenly everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at me because you could viscerally feel everyone in the room relax a significant degree just by this tiny little adjustment to the lights. So, canary in a coal mine, your sensitivity is a good thing. Analogy number 5 is of being a high-performance race car. This one speaks to our incredible potential, but often highly specialized skills. High-performance race cars are expensive, finely tuned machines. You do not use them to duck down to the shops or to run a taxi service. They're literally not built for that kind of everyday task. So when you try and use me for basic everyday tasks, there are going to be some that I'm just horribly unsuitable for. I might technically be able to do it, just like you could use a Formula 1 car to go to the shops if you really needed to. Where we really shine, especially in the workplace, is when we're doing something we're designed to do. My top speed on the open road is phenomenal. Your little runabout taxi, go to the shops and back cannot compete. In my engineering job, I was asked to do some analysis work on this particular product, but there were actually 7 similar products. So I said, can I have twice as much time and I'll do all 7? Because I had the time to get up to speed, I went from being the slowest, most inefficient member of the team to the fastest and most productive member of the team. From slow, clunky, and expensive to just wow. Okay, one more autism analogy, and then I'm curious to hear what you think of my last one. Autism analogy number 6 is of being on a bike when everyone else is walking. This one speaks to having a different processing speed and how hard it can be to be forced to go at someone else's speed when it's not your natural speed. So imagine you're walking with a group, except you're not walking, you're on a bike. I can easily go 4 times the speed of everyone else. So the temptation is to say, hey guys, how about I just go straight to the end and wait for you all? Except now I'm not part of the group. So instead, I try to match the walker's speed, but it's almost impossible. I can't even balance on my bike going at that speed. It's easier to get off the bike and walk instead. And now suddenly there's a flight of stairs, and I either have to carry my bike up the flight of stairs or take the long way and go 200 meters out of my way to go up the ramp instead. Obviously, I'm going to take the ramp, but from everyone else's perspective, why are you doing things the long and complicated way when you could just do it the short way like everyone else? The answer is a different processing speed. When you're on a bike, it's a lot easier to take the long way and avoid the stairs. This is one of the reasons I can't do small talk. It's just too slow. Even trying to hold a text conversation back and forth is just too slow. Can we just get on the phone and we can have a back and forth in real time? That'd be great. But when everyone else wants to do the really slow, small talk and wants to hold a text conversation over hours instead of just a 5-minute chat, it's really draining. And so this analogy sheds a bit of light as to how having the ability to go faster can actually be a significant disadvantage. And I find it works in reverse as well. What if I'm walking and everyone else is on the bike? In that case, most of the time I struggle to keep up, but sometimes I just take the stairs and they have to go the long way. In either case, you're getting a sense of the disabling aspects and also the occasional, I can do this so much easier than the rest of you kind of moments. Okay, finally, number 7, grumpy cat. Now, maybe you need to be a certain age to appreciate this one, but for me, this little guy has inspired some pretty incredible internet memes. Why? Because he looks grumpy. Let's be honest, if you had to guess, how does grumpy cat actually feel? What emotions are they experiencing from moment to moment? Probably very similar to all the other nice, peaceful, sleepy cats that don't look grumpy. But because of this quirk in outward appearance, everyone else is picking up and responding to a message that is not being consciously sent. The human version of this is resting bitch face, otherwise known as flat affect. I feel fine actually, everything's okay, but for some reason other people are treating me as if I'm upset. To me, this speaks to a wider body language miscommunication issue. For me personally, because of my physical needs, people often think that I'm disengaging mentally, when actually I'm still listening, I just need to shut my eyes. Or I'm still listening, I just need to pace up and down the room. Or I'm still listening, I just need to put my head on the desk for a while. But every time this happens, I think of poor little grumpy cat in a Christmas hat, having a great time, providing entertainment for people on the internet, all the while being completely oblivious to the grumpiness being unwittingly projected. Okay, what did you think of that one? Was that a bit of a stretch? I actually have several more analogies that are a bit weird, but I really like, and I plan to share them with you next week if you're interested. If you want a bit of a preview of one of them, check out a blog article I wrote a little while back entitled On Not Being a Duck. If you've read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. So until next time, I'm curious to hear which of these 7 analogies you related to the most. If you have your own that you really love, let me know and maybe I can include it next week. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you next week. Bye.